You're just in time. Well, we will now call together the Bothell Planning Commission meeting for March 19th, 2014. First, we will start with any non-agenda public comments. If there's anybody in the public that would like to speak about something that's not on the agenda, if you can just come up to the podium. Okay. Now we'll move on to the approval of minutes. We have two sets of minutes, February 19th and February 26th. Do we have a motion for approving those minutes?
I make a motion we approve the February 19th, 2014 minutes as presented.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm abstaining. I wasn't there for that one for the 19th.
Okay, so motion passes with Pat abstaining. And do we have a motion for the February 26 minutes?
I make a motion we approve the February 26th, 2014 Bothell Planning Commission minutes.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Let note that the motion to approve the minutes passes unanimously. And do we have any new business? And at this time, any reports from staff? Well, we are now on to the continued public hearing on the 2015 Periodic Plan and Code Update.
Thank you, Mike, and good evening, Planning Commission. This initial hearing tonight, there are two items on your agenda. This initial hearing concerns your first review of the utilities and conservation element. Because we have an audience tonight, I'm going to take a little time and give a recap of the reason that we're doing this periodic plan and code update. And feel free to come closer if you want to get a better view. This plan and code update is required by the State Growth Management Act, or GMA. The GMA mandates that comprehensive plans and the development regulations that implement those plans have to be updated for compliance with the GMA every 8 years. And the purpose of the updates is to reflect legislative changes to the GMA, to incorporate and plan for county growth targeting, or county growth targets, and to make any changes that might be necessitated by legal case law. The last periodic plan and code update was in 2004, and the deadline for completion of this round is June 30th of 2015. The GMA requirements ensure that local plans and regulations comply with the GMA and with multi-county planning policies and applicable countywide planning policies that are also required by the GMA. So the multi-county planning policies for King, Snohomish, Pierce, and Kitsap counties are all contained in Vision 2040. It's a document put out by the Puget Sound Regional Council. There are also King County countywide planning policies and Snohomish County countywide planning policies, both of which we need to be consistent with because Bothell is a two-county city, about a little more than half in King County. We also have to accommodate our assigned population and employment targets, and the GMA requires that we review our critical area regulations and update those if necessary. So here's a brief description of the process that we'll go through to update the plan and code. The Planning Commission will hold public hearings and deliberations. So starting in February and extending through July, we're guessing, the Planning Commission is going through the vision statement and the 13 planning area-wide elements and the code amendment and the code that implements those elements. The Landmark Preservation Board additionally will be involved. They will be reviewing the historic preservation element. They've already held one meeting on that, and we'll hold another at the end of this month. They're reviewing some changes, and then they will meet jointly with the Commission. I think that's scheduled for April or May to update that element. So then from September of this year through January of next year, the Planning Commission will be reviewing the various sub-area plans and the code that implements those plans. And in February of next year, the Commission will integrate the work on the planning area-wide elements and the sub-area plans, tie those together, make a recommendation to the Council. The Council will then hold its own public hearings and deliberations starting in March and probably extending through June. It's not likely that this process will finish before the June 30 deadline, and hopefully we won't need to extend past that. But it's a very complex project. So drilling down a little bit farther, for each Planning Commission meeting, the staff presents draft amendments to one or two sections of the plan and to any development regulations that go along with the plan policies. The Planning Commission takes testimony, deliberates, and provides direction to staff as to any changes or further amendments that the Planning Commission desires. And then approximately 2 or 3 weeks later, staff comes back to the Planning Commission with those revisions to make sure that they captured the Planning Commission's direction. And so to use our time efficiently, the plan sections will leapfrog each other, and that's important to keep the process moving while at the same time giving staff enough time to respond to the Commission's direction. Some sections are more complex than others, so will require more review than others, and we've tried to craft the schedule to accommodate those kinds of variations. All right, so that takes us to the utilities and conservation element. This is one of the required elements under the Growth Management Act. The GMA requires that a utilities element comprises the general location, proposed location, and capacity of all existing and proposed utilities, including but not limited to electrical lines, telecommunication lines, and natural gas lines. And then the state comprehensive plan checklist takes it a step further to provide guidance to cities and counties doing their plans or updating their plans. And it says the utilities element should relate to all services provided, planned for, paid for, and delivered by providers other than the jurisdiction. So that makes this kind of an unusual element in that it has to do with numerous services that the city doesn't provide. So the purpose of it really is to ensure that that our plans, the city's plans, are in sync with the plans of the utilities providers. So in addition to the utilities element, the GMA lists energy conservation as an optional additional element. But neither state law nor the Washington Administrative Code or the WAC provides any guidance as to what a conservation element should include. In the original Imagine Bothell Comprehensive Plan, which was adopted in 1994, the city combined utilities and conservation in one element, largely due to the GMA emphasis on that energy conservation. But since 1994, conservation, the word conservation, has taken on a significantly broader meaning, and now it really commonly encompasses the stewardship and protection of not just electricity and the generation of electricity, but all of Earth's limited resources. So because of that broader application of conservation, staff is proposing to relocate the conservation goals, policies, and actions to the natural environment element. It just seems like a better fit. You, the Commission, have already reviewed the natural environment element on a couple of occasions, on February 26th and March 12th, and so you've you've actually seen that relocated conservation language. You are scheduled to consider that element again on April 9th. Other proposed amendments to the utilities and conservation element, which we're now proposing to call utilities element, include updates to the profile from the individual service providers. So we contacted all the service providers, sent along the existing utilities element, asked them to review that and to send back any changes they felt were necessary to reflect changes in their service provision since 2004, the last time the plan was updated. Another proposed amendment is a rewrite of the telecommunications profile to reflect the evolution of services since 2004. As we noted with the vision statement, telecommunications has changed a tremendous amount, and the language in the plan dating back to 2004 really required some refreshing. There's a solid waste section in the utilities element. The city right now is considering proposals by 3 different solid waste service providers, and when the council decides on a provider, will reflect that section of the utilities element accordingly. There is a proposed new policy in action regarding appropriate vegetation near utilities. This was suggested by the Washington Administrative Code, so we included some language. And then there's an inclusion of a reference to the King County Solid Waste Plan. So staff's recommendation is that the commission accept public testimony, deliberate, provide direction to staff on any revisions the commission might desire to the proposed amendments, and then either continue the public hearing on the utilities and conservation element to April 16, or to, if you feel comfortable doing this, preliminarily approve the amendments to the utilities and conservation element with any revisions that you might request tonight. So that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. So we'll first take some a chance for the commission to, ask questions, and then I see that we have someone in the public. After that, we'll have a chance for public testimony. So, Pat, any?
Just a couple quick comments. Overall, it seems like as we're going through this process, we're making the document more streamlined. We're taking out sections, kind of regrouping. Just curious as to, in this section, we took out cable, we took out, I think, fiber optic cable, and then added wired services and sort of, took it all the way back to the telegraph, I think, in the beginning. So I just wondering the logic behind which sections were added as new versus which ones were deleted and removed.
Yeah. It wasn't so much that we took out cable and fiber optic as we are grouping it under wired services. So it is an attempt to streamline, and it just seemed a little more fitting to have an umbrella term under which we could talk about cable and fiber optic, and other wired services like standard copper telephone wiring.
Okay, and one of the items in the wired services, I like that we included talking about boring and how we're trying to minimize, impact to the streets, because I know a lot of citizens are concerned about tearing up asphalt. Along with the added point on vegetation around overhead utilities or buried utilities, I think that's an important addition that we've made. I'm kind of interested to hear Mike's comments regarding the goals that we have set forth. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're a lot more definable than we were talking about last week as far as greenhouse gases, and just see moving forward if you guys think that these are achievable, if we're on pace to meet the 2020 20 goals set forth here. Overall, I think it looks good.
Thanks. Blake, any comments?
Got three quick questions. Under the solid waste, is there a process for identifying and converting residents that are on septics to sewer, particularly if we've just annexed them in? I think there may be some that were just annexed that are east of the city or something. Is that something we've considered?
We don't force anyone to go on sanitary sewers, provided they have a functioning septic system. If they do want to hook up to city sewers, then we just deal with them on a one-on-one basis. Now, the annexation areas already have sanitary sewer service. The ones on the east side are served by the Woodinville Water District. The southern ones and western ones are served by North Shore Utility District. So most of those areas are sewered already, and there likely are properties that are close to a sewer main, but they're probably larger properties. They've been there forever and ever, and their septic systems still function. So, as I said before, they're not required to hook up when they annex, but it's an option that's available to them if the service is nearby.
Okay. Is there an economy of scale from the service providers if we use the same service provider in King County and Snohomish County?
That's a good question. Let's see. In the annexation areas, the city is served by Waste Management now. And Waste Management also serves the King County annexation areas. No matter what happens with the contract negotiations within the city, the King County annexations will continue to be served by Waste Management for, I think, 7 or 8 years because of the contract that's in place.
Right.
Waste Management also serves the Snohomish County portion of Bothell. But it's a very competitive field, and so the city is evaluating these three proposals.
Okay.
So it doesn't. I mean, you're probably right. If there probably are efficiencies, if one provider were to serve a really large area, but the providers themselves seem to be able to accommodate that in their rate structures, and so it's possible that Bothell can be served by one provider, Kenmore by another, Woodinville by another, Linwood and Kirkland by others, and they all still seem to make money.
Okay. And then the last question is there a process for the mandatory inspection and repair or replacement for some of these utility lines? I'm thinking back specifically to what happened in Bellingham, a decade or so ago. And how do we as a city make sure that something like that doesn't happen in our city?
Well, I think that's another really good question. We monitor and stay in touch with in this case, the folks who run the Olympic pipeline, and I think our fire department folks have contacts with that company and contact them from time to time to ensure that they're doing the necessary routine maintenance to make sure that the facility doesn't deteriorate to the point where it's in danger of rupturing.
And I just had a few questions myself. One point of clarification on page U6, when under telecommunications, the term electronic signals, how broad is that? Does that include fiber optics? Does that include satellite?
Yes.
Okay.
It's intended to.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to double check. Yeah, I wasn't sure if a fiber optic, I mean, if light counted as, when I heard electronic, I always think flow of electrons and not a fiber optic, but that's just me
Well,
checking what I know.
I'm certainly open to any changes that would make the language more accurate. So let me take that back and give it some thought.
One of the other things I thought was great was just seeing the amount of attention given to wireless, especially after we had that whole section on getting the wireless poles and the infrastructure built up there. Seeing that, I did have a question about solid waste. So two things came to mind, and that's on page U9. One of those was about how much attention we should give to. We've talked a lot about a recycling program, and we've talked about garbage disposal programs, but that third category of dealing with compost or organic material, things like that. I know, for example, the location that I live has a recycling program and waste disposal, but there's no, all my food scraps and all my organic matter has to go in the trash, which is not ideal. Do we want to give more attention to composting? Is that already included in the terminology?
I can pay more attention to it. I'll just do a little more research and add that. I know that the collection of food scraps is something that's fairly new with us. We've got little containers that we're handing out to folks who want them. So this is an area that's new for us as well. But as you point out, it's likely to be it's likely to grow in the future. So I'll look into that and see if some additional language is warranted.
Okay. Yeah, where I specifically noticed is where it jumps out was when we listed goals. So we had goals around reducing the waste and reduce and increasing recycling. But whether we thought some sort of organic disposal was significant enough that it deserved a goal, or whether that was still something to consider later. And that's all the comments I had for now. And then at this point, I see we have some people in the public. If you have any questions on things, that's a great time to come up and give your testimony, seeing as we have none. And then I guess we'll keep going. So is there another presentation, or should we move into the study session?
Well, as we've done before, we'd prefer that you work through this element, give us whatever direction you have, and then act on this in terms of either preliminarily approving amendments or continuing to a date certain, and then move on to Bruce's item.
Okay. So now, how would the so we've had a few, I think, relatively minor pieces of feedback. So in terms of our options, are we able to make a motion to approve pending the feedback, or do we need to come back again and take a look at that?
You can do either. In this case, I think I would suggest that you continue this to April 16th. You've given me direction to maybe a little more accurately capture the nature of whatever it is that's being transmitted through fiber optic cables, and also to give a little more attention potentially to the disposal of organic waste. I don't have a good enough notion in my head right now what that's going to look like. So I would prefer that you continue this to April 16th, so we'll bring you back something that you can look at.
Okay. Well,
And those were the two things that I had written down as items that you wanted.
and any other discussion about that?
I'm prepared to make a motion then. I move that we continue the public hearing on the 2015 periodic code amendments for the review of the utilities and conservation element to April 16th.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye. Let it be noted, the board unanimously approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair and members of the public. This is a part of the periodic plan and code update regarding the initial review of the Parks, Recreation, Open Space Action Plan, or PROSAP, element. The Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Action Plan element is a provision within our current comprehensive plan. Now, the Growth Management Act contains some goals concerning open space and recreation, and it kind of reads as follows. It says, retain open space, enhance recreational opportunities, conserve fish and wildlife habitat, increase access to natural resource lands and water, and develop parks and recreational facilities. In addition, the Act requires the land use element to designate the proposed general distribution, location, and extent of uses of land, including recreation and open spaces. Now, the PROSAP, I'm going to use that term quite a bit, concerns parks, recreation, open space, and includes goals, policies, and actions that guide the city's parks and recreation programs, including the Parks and Recreation Board, and the city's open space strategies. The PROSAP also includes an inventory and assigns priorities for developing and acquiring parks and open space, as well as containing provisions concerning recreational programs. The PROSAP is an activity that is actually assigned to the city's Parks and Recreation Board, very similar to the Planning Commission, a lay body of citizens that are basically appointed by the City Council, and they serve as an advisory board to the City Council. Now, the Parks Board is, again, comprised of lay individuals who have basically parks and recreation experience or have a very great interest in that. In 2013, the Park Board held 4 community-wide meetings, conducted 5 public meetings, and forwarded a comprehensive update to the PROSAP to the City Council. The Council conducted a study session and a public hearing and adopted the updated PROSAP on January the 24th of 2014, this year. And they approved it through Resolution 1306. Now, just recently, the State Recreation and Conservation Office, which is the state body that reviews Parks and Recreation plans, approved the updated PROSAP on March 11th. Now, because the PROSAP included an extensive public process and has been approved by the Council and was recently accepted by the State of Washington Department of Recreation, staff is proposing to simply adopt the PROSAP into the Imagine Bothell Comprehensive Plan as is, basically the way it has been approved. This action would satisfy, of course, the Growth Management Act recreation open space provisions, as well as includes important community features such as open space within the Imagine Bothell Comprehensive Plan. We don't anticipate there will be any changes necessary to the PROSAP document because it is so new. Now, that concludes my presentation. I'd be more than willing to take any questions you may have.
Bruce, can I make one suggestion? Yes, sir. I think on page PR5 there is one change on that table. I think it's supposed to be January 21st, 2014. It shows 2013.
Oops. Let me take a look at that. You're right. It should be 2014. Thank you.
More of a question than anything else, Bruce. Is there a special zoning for utility corridors by any chance?
No.
So
just the underlying zoning is what
okay.
applies to that.
Okay. I've seen some municipalities that have had, not in this area, but they've either had driving ranges, golf driving ranges, or they've had public storage underneath, like utility easements, utility corridors.
Oh.
And I'm wondering what that process would look like within the city of Bothell.
Well, certainly there would be no reason why you couldn't have that type of a use, provided basically the owner of the easement, let's say it's Puget Sound Energy or one of those folks, was willing to consider that type of a use. In fact, we have a couple of residential developments where they do have some open space areas that are underneath those power lines. And basically what occurred is they went to the Puget Sound Energy, and Puget Sound Energy said, we have no problem with you putting some grass field and things like that. So they do occasionally approve those type of uses.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Mike, I have a question. So this was approved just in January?
Yes.
I'm just curious. I mean, it's a new document, so.
Any other questions for staff or discussion?
Just one other quick change on PR 24. It has the table of foundation level of service. I don't know that we need to correct it here, but the open space, should that be a negative 109.83 instead of a positive?
You know, I'll check into that.
Okay.
And any other questions or comments from the commission? And I see we have some people in the public. If any questions or comments on the park section? We have no testimony from the public. So where does that give us our? What steps should we take next on parks then? Should we just?
I'm not sure what they want us to do with it.
It's already approved. Should
So this has already been reviewed and approved.
Yes.
What direction should we take on it next?
The idea would be just essentially to adopt this into our Imagine Bothell comprehensive plan. Basically, if you have no changes or any suggested revisions other than the couple of items we've heard tonight, I think you could approve this preliminarily and assign it to the stack of completed documents.
And procedurally, do we do that with a motion?
Yes.
Well, can I get a motion?
Yeah, I move that we approve the review of the 2015 Parks and Recreation element and add that to our completed documents to move forward.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. So,
Thank you.
are there any other presentations for the public hearing tonight? I see those are the two on the agenda.
No, that's it.
All right. Study session? Oh, no study session tonight. On to old business. Is there a presentation or review that I see for old business? We have the 2015 periodic plan and code updates for the vision statement and the annexation element.
Yeah, as I informed you last week, or maybe it was the week before, what we want to do is when you complete your preliminary recommendation on each element, we want to provide you a finished copy of that. And so old business was the best place we could think of to put it on the agenda. It's not really a discussion item. It's a document that's for your records to hold on to. So when we come back with the assembled elements in July or whatever, if you chose to, you could check that against what you preliminarily approved. So that's it.
Okay. Any reports from staff?
Nothing here.
Maybe I'll report on the council meeting last night. The council last night held public hearings and considered two code amendments on which you made recommendations. One had to do with the general downtown corridor code amendments, which I'm not sure when in 2013 you considered those, but they consisted of a proposed change to the parking ratio in the general downtown corridor, which extends up Beardsley Boulevard and in the northwest section of downtown, and there's another small part that is on 522. So it proposed to change the parking requirement, that was one thing, to allow parking on the sides of buildings, provided it was screened. And what was the other change? Oh, it would allow the front yard setback to be reduced if there was a commensurate increase in setback next to single family. So the council last night had a public hearing and a pretty good debate, and the council was concerned that the .75 stalls per bedroom parking requirement that is in the downtown core and downtown neighborhood districts was not enough. And so after some debate, and Steve Booth was at the council meeting helping Dave Boyd present the item. After significant debate, the council decided to go with a ratio of 1 stall per bedroom rather than the .5 stalls. So they approved otherwise approved the code amendments as you had recommended them with that one change. The second code amendment the council heard had to do with the downtown signs. The council, the main topic in that debate had to do with portable signs, as you might imagine, given the spirited debate that took place before you. And so the council expressed the same concern that some of you did, that the changes really should be made, or the issue of portable signs should really be looked at on a citywide basis and not just for downtown. We didn't feel comfortable allowing you to open that box because the initiating language from the council had been limited to downtown, and so although some of you wanted to go there, Dave told you that we didn't have that authority. So when the council discussed it last night, they said, well, we really do want to look at this issue on a citywide basis. So they extracted that part out of the code amendments and said, let's put that in abeyance and then look at it in a citywide context. So that's going to be coming back to you sometime. I'm not sure when, because you have your schedule's kind of full with this plan and code update stuff. But sometime this year, the issue of portable signs will be coming back to you. The one change the council did want to make with regard to portable signs was to correct the legal issue that exists now, where portable signs under the downtown code were to be limited to, I think, restaurants and maybe one other kind of use. And our city attorney says you can't do that. That's unconstitutional. So that fix has been made. Otherwise, the portable sign issue has been taken out and put aside. But the other downtown sign code amendments, the council acted on per your recommendation. So I just wanted to give you that update on those two items. And otherwise, I think we have nothing else to report.
Great. Well, thank you for the update.
Mm-hmm.
Any reports from members? Well, at this point, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
We need to second that?
Someone has to second it, yeah. Just someone say second.
Second.